Well, what do you think of Dansby Swanson being a Cub?
Yeah, I'm a fan. The Cubs clearly targeted the four shortstops. They were going to it seemed like they were going to come away with one of them. And I think at this point in their development, he's a real good fit. Tremendous defender. Run prevention obviously is the focus here, right? With Bellinger in center, sliding Nico over to second. Dansby now is short. You're really good up the middle. Gomes, and I would assume they're going to go out and find another catcher who is defensive-minded. So I think it's a real good step in the right direction.
Heard you on Marquee Network saying exactly what I thought, too. It's like, go hard after Correa, and I think those were your words, too. And I'm hoping they weren't sort of chasing the market after this, but when I saw the numbers on the deal, do you think this is the kind of intelligent spending that Jed Hoyer has discussed?
Yeah, I do, and I think probably, and I don't know how this all works, but what I'm guessing is they assign a value to each of these free agents. Like, here we're willing to go this many years for this many dollars for this player, and that player. And as players, demands got higher and higher, you're willing to stretch for certain guys and in certain situations. But I just don't feel like they probably weren't comfortable given where they are in this, build to stretch where they needed, to go get Correa with 13 years and whatever the dollar ended up being. Whereas Swanson's deal, and some will argue that was a bit of an overpay, but I'm not convinced that it is. I think this is just much more palatable. It's shorter, and the dollars are right. And he's a guy in the prime of his career, and and the Cubs are in a position where they had to make a move, right? They had to do something to solidify their lineup, to improve their defense, and to let the fan base know that they're back in business.
For someone that watches Nico Hoerner play every day, how have you seen him develop defensively, and what type of advantage will it be to put him at second base?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a Gold Glove candidate every year. He's at second base. He's a fine shortstop. It's not like the Cubs needed a shortstop. They just needed to get better. And that's where there was a core of players that were coming on the market, and four of them happened to be shortstops. So adding a shortstop, moving Nico to second made perfect sense. It's such a cliche, but he's such a grinder. He plays hard. He works hard. They all do. They're major league players. But he just he's got that it factor. And he's going to be rock solid for a number of years.
When you think about pitchers being on a clock in between pitches, and I don't know if you ever have gone back and actually timed out your own routine of the time that you took, but everybody worked faster back when you pitched. How reasonable is a period of acclimation for major league pitchers who are used to really recharging their power bar the whole time?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, Dan. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm sure some guys will adjust pretty easily. Other guys will have an issue with it. There's going to be a decent amount of griping, I'm sure, from some of the veteran guys. They're going to be asked to make this kind of a change. I think for my day, I was probably a fairly slow worker. I threw over to first base a lot. That had to be annoying. There was a period in my career before I got contacts. I wore glasses, and I was always pulling like a Sandy out of my back pocket, wiping my glasses off, and I had to drive, infielders nuts behind me. And it's one of those things we always know, right? We always say, work quickly, throw strikes, let your defense do the work for you. But sometimes as pitchers, we get stuck on our own routine. And in hindsight, it probably would have benefited, or I would have benefited from working a little more quickly, would be my guess. So I think if guys are open-minded about it and realize there's value and the kind of play they're going to get behind them, they should be able to make the adjustment. But it'll be a little wonky at first.
You had brought up the idea of the Cubs being strong up the middle, and you talked about Yan Gomes. What is it about throwing to him that pitchers like, and clearly the front office has value for?
Yeah, I think it's just he's been around a long time, and he has a real good feel for the pitcher-catcher relationship. And he's one of those guys whose primary focus is just getting the pitcher through the game. Whether he goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts or has a nice day offensively, what really matters most to him is his relationship with the pitcher. and getting that guy as far along as he can successfully. And I think that just comes through in his personality, the way he talks to pitchers, the way pitchers respond to him. And I think David Ross really values that, right? Because Rossi was that guy throughout his career. And I think that's why Rossi is so high on Yan Gomes. And it's always hard to know the pitcher-catcher relationship from outside the clubhouse. Because, anytime you ask a pitcher, how do you like throwing to player X, they're going to say, I love that guy. They're not going to bury their teammate. So that's one of the things that I've always found hard to know, what that relationship is like for battery mates. But I do know, just everything I've heard about Gomes and what I've seen from him. He's a defense-minded first, get his pitcher through the game first kind of guy, and he's really good at it.
Well, I've noticed a huge lack of understanding among Cubs fans and baseball fans about the importance of catcher as caddy. Even though we've seen it here with Ross himself and John Lester and how that's and you have talked a little bit about the way that Wilson Contreras would move around behind the plate and sometimes be a little bit jumpy, maybe not hang in there and give an umpire an extra look on a pitch. And I'm not here to dump on Wilson Contreras. I understand if the Cubs really do value the catcher as a caddy for the pitcher and as a defensive instrument that can really help prevent runs and really make you more likely to win.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify, right? That's the challenge. Like, not having Wilson back obviously is a downgrade, a significant downgrade offensively. But some of those softer skills, pitch framing, receiving, staying quiet back there. I mean, he loved to throw to the bases, but sometimes he get a little jumpy and maybe cost you a strike because he's trying to pick somebody off. All of those things matter. I don't know how much, right? And that's the line you had to draw. And clearly the Cubs got to a point where they felt like they wanted to be defensive focused. And I think that's, clearly indicated by the acquisitions they've made this offseason and the direction they're going with their catching. And I'm with you. Contreras brought a lot to the table. He was a really good player for a long time here. It's just, his game is a little bit different.
JD, what do you think has happened to Cody Bellinger to get him to this point?
Man, I don't know. That's a great question. He and Yelich, right, are the two great mysteries in the National League, guys, former MVPs that have kind of taken a hard fall. It's the mental part of the game is he has some physical issues, one, right, that clearly had to have some kind of an impact. And then once you've kind of been on top of the mountain and you start to scuffle and it gets into your head and maybe you're making swing changes and maybe you're listening to different coaches and maybe you're not listening to the right coach. I don't know. I haven't been around him enough. I don't know his full story, but I do know that this game can just gnaw at you and it can get inside your head, and a good player can turn into a mediocre player in a short period of time, and something that needs to be addressed and fixed. The good news is he's still very young. He should be in the prime of his career. He's physically gifted, so it's worth a shot, right? To bring him in, he brings value defensively. He's good on the bases, and if he comes close to recapturing what he was, that's a hell of a sign.
What are you hearing about the plans at the major league level for Matt Mervis?
I'm not hearing a lot. I probably don't know any more than you guys do. He's going to get an opportunity this spring. I think clearly they would like to have a fallback position. I don't think they're just going to hand him the job and go, here, you're our everyday first baseman. They're going to want some protection there in case he struggles, and that's why they were interested in Jose Abreu, targeting him. But I think he did enough in the minor leagues last year and shown enough power that he's going to get a long look in spring training and an opportunity, if not to be the guy, to be one of the guys over there at first base.
When you look at Jameson Taillon's career, what do you think he adds to the Cubs rotation?
Yeah, good, solid major league starting pitcher. You guys know the story. Second pick in the draft back in 2010 with tremendous upside, a lot of physical issues throughout the years. Injuries a big part of his story, but when healthy, he's been really good. Had an outstanding year with the Pirates a year or two. Was good with the Yankees last year. by all accounts, just a really high character guy. How much that matters, I don't know. It's just nice to have good people on your ball club. But he competes, has good stuff. To me, he's a good, solid middle of the rotation guy who in the right system may be more of a top of the rotation guy. Time will tell.